She was tied spread-eagle beneath the merciless Kansas sun, screaming without sound. Not the kind of scream that tears out of a throat, but the kind that echoes inside the skull when the body has nothing left to give. The mind screaming because the voice is already gone. Her name was May Turner. She was 19 years old. She was barefoot. Her skin was streaked with dirt and dried sweat. One sleeve of her dress had torn clean down the seam, exposing skin already blistering from the heat. Her wrists were pulled straight over her head, tied high to a fence post, the rope biting deep. Her ankles were bound so far apart that every tremor of her legs made the fibers cut deeper into her flesh. She had been left there like cattle. Left to burn. Left to break. Most folks around Dodge City would have ridden straight past her that day. The prairie was wide and cruel, and people learned early not to ask questions out there. Trouble had a way of becoming contagious. So did pain. But if you had been there, the first thing you would have noticed were her eyes. Wide. Glassy. Fixed on nothing and everything all at once. The look of someone who had already accepted she was going to die. The wind dragged dust across her face, sticking to the tears she couldn't wipe away. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Every few minutes she whispered the same word, over and over, barely more than breath. Please. No one answered. You ever see someone so lost that your chest tightens before your mind even understands why? That was May. Left in the open by the only man who should have protected her. Her stepfather. Silas Turner. Silas was a hard man in the wrong ways. He drank more than he worked and worked more at controlling than caring. He believed the world owed him something, and when it didn't pay up, he took what he thought was his anyway. After May's mother died, Silas decided the girl would replace her in every way that mattered to him. When May refused, he dragged her out to the far edge of his land and tied her to that fence post. He told her she'd learn her place before sunset. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the air thick and shimmering like boiling water. Her throat dried until swallowing felt impossible. Her legs shook so badly the ropes rattled against the post. At some point she thought she heard buzzards circling, but she was too weak to lift her head. Then something changed. At first it was faint. A dull thump through the ground. Slow. Rhythmic. Hooves. The sound grew closer. A single horse, dust trailing behind it. The rider pulled hard on the reins when he saw her. Elias Ward. 47 years old. A rancher who had survived drought, death, and every kind of trouble the West could throw at a man. He had buried friends, lost cattle, and watched good land turn to dust. But nothing prepared him for the sight of a young woman tied out like bait under an open sky. He froze in the saddle. Not from fear. From disbelief. He climbed down slowly, boots sinking into the dry grass. May tried to speak when she saw him, but only air escaped her lips. Elias knelt beside her, his shadow finally giving her a scrap of shade. He touched the rope at her wrist. It was soaked dark with sweat and blood. He looked around the empty prairie, half expecting something monstrous to crawl out of the grass. Then he spoke. 5 quiet words. No one deserves this. He reached for his knife. And though May didn't know it yet, the moment that blade touched the rope was the moment her life split into a before and an after. When the last rope snapped free, her body gave out. She pitched forward, knees buckling, and Elias caught her before she hit the dirt. She felt light in his arms, almost hollow, like fear had carved half of her away. He lifted her onto his horse with the care of a man holding something fragile he knew he couldn't fix, but refused to drop. The ride back to Ward Ranch felt endless. The prairie stretched wide and silent, broken only by May's shallow breaths. Elias kept talking, calm and steady, not asking questions. Just simple truths. You're all right. Stay awake if you can. Most men out there spoke rough and loud. Elias spoke like he didn't want to scare a wounded animal. And that's exactly what May felt like. Ward Ranch sat near the Arkansas River, stubbornly standing because Elias worked harder than his body wanted to. When he carried May inside, the housekeeper, Mrs. Grady, took one look and nearly dropped her kettle. "Lord have mercy," she said. "Put that child down before she melts." May drifted in and out while Mrs. Grady cleaned her wounds and Elias fetched water and cloth. He stayed near the doorway, eyes low, hands on his belt. He didn't stare. He didn't crowd her. When May finally woke, dusk was settling beyond the barn window. For one terrifying moment she thought she was still tied to that fence. Then she saw Elias asleep in a chair near her bed, hat tipped over his eyes. Without the grit and dust, he looked older. Gentler. She whispered, "Why did you help me?" Elias woke slowly. Studied her for a long moment. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." That night, she woke shaking, convinced she heard Silas's boots in the hall. Elias was sitting outside her door, hat in his lap, keeping watch. He didn't come in. Just spoke softly, telling her she was safe. She cried quietly until sleep found her again. But she knew Silas wasn't finished. And she was right. When Silas found the cut ropes and empty field, his rage burned hot. By the next day, he was riding toward Ward Ranch. And 2 nights later, he returned, with help. The sound of hooves came out of the dark. Silas Turner rode in front. Behind him was Jeb Mallory, a hired gun with narrow eyes and a hand that rested too easily near his pistol. Elias stepped off the porch and planted himself between them and the house. May watched from the doorway, heart pounding. Silas shouted about ownership. About family. About rights. Elias didn't raise his voice. "She's free here," he said. "And she's staying." That was enough. Jeb drew first. The shot grazed Elias's arm, tearing cloth and skin. Elias staggered but didn't fall. The second shot went wild. Elias fired once, low and true. Jeb went down. Silas rushed forward, screaming, and Elias looped a rope around him and yanked him face first into the dirt. By dawn, both men were tied and marched toward Dodge City. Justice came slow back then, but it came. Days passed. Then weeks. May stayed. She learned the rhythm of the ranch. The smell of hay. The sound of horses breathing. She laughed for the first time while mending a fence. Healing didn't rush. It walked. One afternoon she told Elias, "I feel safe here." He nodded. "That's the first step." "What's the last?" she asked. "Living," he said. "Choosing who you are." And on that porch, watching the sun sink behind the cottonwoods, May believed him. Because even after everything, the human heart is stubborn. It reaches for light.